Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Build in Digital micro conference on circular construction and digital carbon tracking from embodied to operational net zero. I'm Joe Broon. I'm the Managing Director of Build in Digital and today's host of the meeting. Today, we'll explore how digital technologies are helping the industry move from a traditional build, use, dispose model towards a more circular and transparent approach to construction. Our speakers today will discuss how tools such as BIM, material passports, digital asset management, and emerging platforms for carbon verification are helping organizations better understand embodied and operational carbon across the full life cycle of buildings. We'll also look at how improved supply chain transparency and data sharing can support compliance, material reuse, ESG reporting, and more informed decision-making across the built environment. Let me introduce our next keynote speaker today, is Anastasia Stella. Anastasia is the co-founder and CEO of Circuland, and he's talking about circular economy in practice. Anastasia, you're free to present and take over the screen with your slides as well.
Excellent. Good afternoon, Joe. Thank you very much for having us. Excellent. So I think Denise gave us a fantastic introduction about what is the problem. All this about the data, not having transparency, not having the right information. This presentation will focus a bit more on how we can do this practically, both for new buildings and existing buildings, and how we have been doing it in Circuland and through some practical examples. So just a short intro about me. My background is in architecture. But I have focused on sustainability, net zero, circular economy as consultant previously. And then through my previous role in Waterman, we implemented materials passports in Adenica, which is the first building in the City of London to have passports, and also authored a framework for the materials passports, what data we need on a product level, on a building level, how does it go on a city level. So currently, I'm involved in key EU standards for the circular economy, and I lead the standard for the circularity aspects of the building passports and construction works. While we have created also Circuland as a tool to support all this process of creating materials passports. So as an overview, what we have been doing is to create product passports, and this can be for new products, but also reused or remanufactured. And then this is how we can create the building passports, while there is also a Revit plugin to support it, with a system to have all the documents in a structured format that we need to have for the buildings. And the audit body, as we call it, the functionality to record the existing buildings and understand what we do with these resources. So starting with the building passport first, we can see here some examples that we have been working on. Let me go one back. So it can be either the base build, as we call it, so the main structure, the facade, and so on, but also the fit out. For example, this is a full fit out project. This is fit out and base build. And this is primarily base build. Just to understand how we have approached this and how the solution works is on 4 different levels. The first part is the holistic documentation. As Denise mentioned earlier, the information sits in so many different tools, so many organizations. So the carbon is one click. The health and safety can be some folders. The fire can be somewhere else. So what we try to do is for each product, we create the product passport, which brings together all the different areas for a specific product. So data about the carbon, about the value, about the circularity, compliance, and fire safety, and every time in standardized machine-readable format. So once we have this data for the product, this can be automatically connected to our building, and then it can go all the level till the portfolio. So we can understand which products are in the wider portfolio. The third dimension is the life cycle documentation. So once a product comes into the building and it becomes a building element, it has a life cycle passport. So this includes information for the design, like where is the location, what are the dimensions, and so on. the manufacturing information, which is everything that comes from here, the product passport, but also construction, who built it on site, when, and so on. And it's a life cycle document, so it can be updated throughout the use days in coordination with the facility management systems. And of course, the actual end of life, what we do with this at the end of life. And all of this can be connected to the model if we have one. So what this means is that once we link the products to our building based on the model or a bill of materials, we can automatically see in a dynamic dashboard how all of this, what is the performance, what is the reused content, what is the recycled content, what can be disassembled. And then, for example, we can see the different products we have in our buildings, the quantities, how they can contribute to the carbon performance, and every time easily filter what we need and see all the information about this product, whatever we're interested at each stage. For example, the documents, the circularity information, what goes in, what goes out, the carbon, but also the technical performance. And if we have the model, it's possible to see exactly what we have passported and where each product is, so what are the products, and see them where they are located in the building, but automatically create intelligence out of this data. So understand where the main carbon hotspots sit in our building, associated directly with specific elements. So really get a practical understanding of how this performs, how the building performs, both for carbon, also for the cost, because this is the typical starting point every time in every analysis. What is the high carbon, high value objects in our buildings for reuse and for retention? And as I mentioned before, it's a life cycle document. So each element can have its own unique passport where we can see information about if it can be disassembled, the connections, and everything that comes from the product passport, as we saw before. And here again, we can see if we want the use states information and document the actual end of life. So having this full transparency, and as this system is integrated with AI, we can very easily make the questions that we want to our building and get the response in the format even we want. And this is just to understand how this integrates with the document management system, checklists that we can see what documents we have, what we don't have, what is final, what is draft, to make sure that we have everything we need for our buildings. In terms of the audit side, is here again, we can see some examples we have been working on. It's about understanding what we have in the existing building. So creating this inventory and then to understand how we manage them. So what we can reuse and how we facilitate all this process. Just to, again, get a bit of a more practical understanding is where we can go on site and start recording where we are, which floor, which space, and then start adding the resources that have high value for reuse or retention. Yeah, so the good thing is that by associating it with generic data, then we can automatically get performance for carbon, a lot of different aspects. And in essence, to put the condition, to put the demountability, and what we can reuse every time, so that we have our digital inventory every time showing the condition, the demountability, the quantities, and we can every time include the destination. What do we do with these resources? Where do we send them? Is it for charity? What is the value that we can extract out of this? Let me go into the next one perhaps. And also automatically create output that we can share with other shareholders and stakeholders, and show them this is what we have available. What you're interested in, for example, getting. Here we can see, let's zoom in here, for example. Okay, from the furnishing, these are the chairs we have identified. What are the quantities? What is the condition? And so on. And the good thing is that we can also have what we saw before, the digital reuse catalog, which then links directly to the urban mine. So this is how scale up from the one building to either a portfolio level, if we are a developer, or on a city level, that we can see what we have available, how it's in a more standardized format, so that we can see all the flooring, the raised access floor together, all the available options, quantities, when they're available, where, and so on, and support the reuse. And a couple of minutes for some real examples. So the one broadgate scheme, which is we record materials passports for the whole fit out. This is the new main office of JLN, and we have been working with Overbury. So we have been creating passports for 20 subcontractor packages, around 300 products we have been recording. It's in progress. The construction will be completed in the next months. So here we can see an overview of the different elements we have been recording. This includes from internal partitions, floor finishes, ceilings, joinery, furniture, MEP. So it's almost a full fit out. And it's very interesting how the process has happened. And the most interesting is we see that once it's done the first time, the second time is very, very much streamlined because the supply chain knows exactly how to do it, and it can become part of their typical process. So this is an overview of the process, like how we identify the scope, how we create the requirements, and how we collect the information for the product data, BIM data, reviewing it, and then creating the passport. And an example of the auditing with the intention to have the reuse is for the new headquarters of Legal and General. So they're moving from the one office to another office. So here we can see the current headquarters. So they have done the audit and they have identified 6.5K approximately furniture for use. So they have done this analysis. What is the condition? Where it is? What product each of them uses based on their asset management system. So based on this, we have been collaborating for recording everything in the platform and then getting all the carbon reporting, the social value based on the destination, where each of this goes, what building, is it portfolio, is it external marketplace, and finally, what is the carbon saving, and what is the social value based on which of this is charity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anastasia. Some really interesting stuff there about building passports. But I just wonder kind of what the viable kind of starting point is to create a meaningful building passport. How do you handle gaps in product level information?
Yeah, so the product level comes based on the available. So product level, there are two aspects. First of all, it's what is the scope of products we're going to record in a building. And the second level is what is the level of detail that we record in its product. So in terms of the scope, this is up to every project is different because some is refurbishment. So not everything, there are specific categories. So it is up to the client every time where they see the highest value and what they select to record. We have seen different approaches so far. Our approach is that it's good, the high value, high carbon as an initial approach. Then in terms of the level of detail, this has to do with the existing documents that there is available for each product. As Denise was saying before, we start from what are the existing documents, data sheets, EPDs, declaration of performance. This is where we start extracting the data from through the AI system and review. And yeah, this is, I think, even starting with this gives us a great basis because the industry is so behind and it's so standardized and manual and every time for every project, once again and again, the same thing. So I think even starting with this and incrementally enriching this data would be a great starting point.
Yes, indeed. We've got a question from Warwick. How do you maintain accuracy of product carbon catalogs?
Yeah, so the product carbon catalogs, I guess you mean so we have the product passports. The product passports have the carbon information, which comes either from an EPD. So the accuracy has to do with the EPD or from an LCA specific study. So we have seen some examples like for concrete mix that it varies depending on the consistency. of the concrete mix that can be based on calculators. So it can be either 3PD or specific LCA study. If this is not available, the third option is through generic data, which is database is acceptable per country, which keeps being updated by the relevant bodies.
I've got just to follow that on from Laura's question, actually. You might have already kind of loosely answered it, but you mentioned obviously that you can reuse the catalogue and can scale from a single building to a portfolio, even city level. But in practice, how do you ensure that the data quality and standardization of product information remains consistent when you're aggregating across multiple assets, buildings, developers, supply chains at that kind of scale?
Great point. Yeah, so there are two aspects. So there is the how accurate it is, and then the standardization. The accuracy bit is up to the auditors. So if the auditors quantifies correctly the quantity, this is their responsibility. But also this is the thing that if we start recording and we see what was the the construction audit estimate and what is the actual, then we can see how close these are. Because currently still there are many discrepancies we have seen. What are the estimated quantities and what post demolition are the actual ones. But I think by starting recording and having transparency in calculations and so on, all of this can be improved. So this is up to the auditor. About the standardization, how we get a standardized approach across different projects, this is why we have this generic data. It can be either through product data, if you need which product is the specific chair. If you don't, it's generic data, and it's the same generic data across all the different audits. So this allows to really link directly what is plastic chair, regardless if you have called it the red plastic chair or whatever name makes sense.
Yeah. In practice, what are some of the biggest barriers to getting the supply chain engaged and consistently contributing accurate data, especially the first time around? And how do you overcome some of these challenges?
Yeah, when we were supporting, so we have been supporting with the platform, but also with the actual implementation in some projects. So the initial approach was to create data templates to ask the manufacturers to provide the data and then review it. But we saw that this can create mistakes. So our approach following this was to use the AI to just ask for the data sets that are verified documents and use them to extract the data and review. And only if there's important information we're missing to ask the manufacturers along a self-declaration document, which shows very clearly that this comes directly from them, so it's not verified by external body.
Yeah. Okay. We've got a question in the chat from Junita Chang, who's an architect at Open 8 Architects. Junita asks, they're an architectural firm of small to medium size, mainly residential projects. What existing documents would we start with? Our specification or our CAD drawings and models? If we have to create another spreadsheet or document, this will be time consuming for a small practice and not something our private clients will necessarily want to pay for.
Very good point. I think in terms of the model, for the model, you say CAD drawings, but also models. So the CAD drawings, it wouldn't affect. You just do it the same way you do it. So to create the building passport, you can either do it with a bill of materials that you would anyway have, because also to do the carbon assessment, for example, this is your starting point. What materials we use, what quantities. So this is exactly what you can use for the building passport, but instead of connecting it to the APD, for example, in one click, you just connect it with the product passport, so you get all the rest of the info. Now, if you have a model, we typically just keep a model you already have, and we see how we link it to the products. And we also have different system for assembly, so how you can, in order not to have increased complexity in the model, how you create assembly of products within the platform and link the whole assembly. It's more technical, but I think in essence it is that it can be very much adjusted on what you do. And we think this is critical because if it requires a lot of extra work, it will be very difficult to be applied more widely.
Okay, thank you for your question, Janita. Okay, thank you for a great presentation there, Anastasia. Very much appreciate your time and your insights. Right, I'm going to just kind of sum up. So, we began today's micro conference looking at the building circularity into the DNA of construction with Denise Onar, who is the Chief Growth Officer at EcoWise. Denise highlighted that construction circularity challenge is not a data shortage, but a data fluidity problem. Carbon, material, and compliance data exists, but it's fragmented across dozens of systems and formats. The solution lies in three shifts: circulating data freely, ensuring data sovereignty, and adopting permissioned decentralized identity so the right data reaches the right people at the right time. We then moved on to circular economy in practice with Anastasia Stella, who's the co-founder and CEO of Circuland. Anastasia presented Circuland's building passport system, which tracks materials and products throughout a building's life cycle to enable circular economy practices. The platform creates digital records for new and existing buildings, facilitates material reuse through catalogues that scale from single buildings to portfolios, and streamlines supply chain data collection to improve accuracy over time. We then looked at turning circularity into action with Doug Johnson, director and founder of Mesh. Doug highlighted that embodied and operational carbon remain poorly understood across the industry, with siloed working and late-stage decisions undermining outcomes. Doug emphasized the need for early collaboration, real-time design feedback, trusted data, and practical steps, starting small, using EPDs, and ensuring digital tools genuinely influence projects rather than acting simply as vanity exercises. So, as we've heard today, the industry already has much of the data it needs. The real challenge is connecting it, trusting it, and using it early enough to influence decisions. Whether it's enabling data fluidity across the supply chain, creating digital material passports to support reuse, or embedding carbon thinking into design from day one, the common thread is collaboration and transparency. What's also clear is that circularity and net zero delivery won't be achieved through technology alone. Success depends on practical implementation, trusted information, and ensuring digital tools genuinely shape outcomes rather than simply reporting them after the fact. Hopefully, today's discussion has shown that the opportunity is no longer theoretical. The tools, platforms, and approaches already exist. The challenge now is scaling adoption, breaking down those silos, and turning better data into better decisions across the full life cycle of our buildings and infrastructure. Please join me in thanking Doug, Denise, Anastasia for sharing their insights today. And thanks to you all for joining us for the Building Digital Micro Conference. I hope to see you at a future one. Thank you very much.